He is at the AFCA convention, I think in Charlotte. Temple High football coach Scott Stewart joins Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, and I'm David Smoak on 365 Sports, on a day in which two former Temple Wildcats will be a part of the national championship game, and boy, are they. Jared Wiley, the tight end, wide receiver Quentin Johnson. Scott, thanks for your time. Hope you're enjoying the convention. How proud are you right now of what you have with two men who have made big differences for TCU?
Man, I can't. First of all, appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me on. But man, those kids, and again, it's a sense of pride. And I, here's what I did. Here's the realization. Here's the reality of my life. I was a way better coach when I had those guys run around in blue front white back pants.
No doubt.
They're such great kids. I mean, I've always said, culture to me is defined by, if you're positive culture, if you're most talented personnel, whether that be a football team, that to me that's a good business model. But when you're most gifted personnel, your hardest workers, then everything just seems to fall into place. And those two young men were as hard workers as I've ever coached. And I've coached some before and since, but I mean, to see those guys succeed on that level and to know what their true character is and spend 4 years with them and know that's the fruits of their labor, man. I'm just so proud of those guys.
Coach, Quentin and Jared both kind of the same thing. Jared was a quarterback who became a tight end. Of course, he's a gigantic person anyway, so probably not as hard as for smaller guys, but still you have to change everything you know about what you've played your whole life and learn to block and all these different things. And Quentin was a guy in high school who, most guys his size and speed don't have to rely on things like learning to run routes or the nuances, because in high school, like, okay, well, this DB's 5'9". If the quarterback gets it up to me, I'm going to catch it. But the development of both of them over the years kind of is a testament to their work ethic, because they could have just sat on their athleticism and done nothing.
Could have. And unfortunately, I've coached guys like that. I'm sure we've all seen, read, whatever. They absolutely could have. I mean, I don't remember. I always see Jared. I think he took one butt chewing in the 4 years that I coached him, and I don't ever remember even raising my voice to Quentin, because, again, all I'm going to ask is for great attitude and great effort, and I got nothing but that. And the only time that I remember, and he agrees, he don't remember another one, that Jared got one is because, Jared got one is because we're playing Belton in triple overtime, and I'm like, hey, throw it to the 7-foot high jumper, right? And he said, Coach, the safety kicked over the top. I said, I don't care if the Pope himself kicks over the top. Throw it to the freaking D1 athlete. And he did. We scored and we won. So we still tease about that. But, no, I mean, they were a joy to coach. You didn't have to worry about them in the weight room. They were never a grade problem. There was never any negative connotation. They weren't cutting up in the streets. They're acting foolish. I mean, and it's really, really heartwarming and really, really good just to have those kids be on this stage.
Coach, I know they had a bit of different journeys, with Jared transferring eventually and landing in this spot, but let's start with Quentin here. When did he first get on your radar, and when did that start to become something that you're like, okay, we've got something pretty special in this young man? And can you also speak to just, the opportunities he's talked about at this offseason with the transfer portal being the bonanza that it is? Some schools came after him. He decided to stay loyal and stick with TCU, and we see the spot he's in now where if he had been named the Blitnikoff Award winner, I don't think anybody would have batted an eye. And it probably, would have been deserving of that. But can you just speak to when you first saw Quentin get on your radar and just the loyalty that he had and ended up in this position?
So, in Temple, one horse town, we've got 3 middle schools that feed us. So I knew about him in middle school. He was kind of a tall, skinny kid. I'm not going to put freshman. He was an athletic kid as a freshman, but was just skinny as a rail. He's a big time basketball player. He was a kid, he was a freshman when we made that 16 run. And so we talked to him and his folks about, making the ride with us, because we knew I didn't know he'd take that big a part as a sophomore, but we knew he'd take a part as a sophomore. And so they didn't want to do that. They wanted to get him into basketball. He didn't want to kind of stand around, and his dad, they're both the same guy. I mean, the reason Quentin is the way he is because of his parents. But he's about business. If it's football, he's all in on football. If it's basketball, he's all in on basketball. If it's track, and so as a sophomore, he was okay. We called him in after his sophomore year, and I said, Bud, I know you don't shy away from it at all, but you've got a big frame. You're going to have to hit the weight room harder. He was a basketball kid. He was playing on sports. So that little joker, as a sophomore, started coming in the mornings. He would find some time in the afternoons, and he went as a sophomore, was probably 6'6", 6'1", and about 150 pounds. And as a junior, he was about 6'2.5" and about 185. And as a senior, he was 6'4", 195. And when that weight room kicked in, that's when he became a different creature. And the confidence grew. Obviously, the jumping ability some of that's natural, but some of that's been developed too. So that was kind of his journey. I had zero questions about Bortles. He really, really, really liked the guys that recruited him from Texas. And then about 2 weeks before signing day in December, the head coach was there at the time, fired everybody. So Quentin came to me and said, "Look, he's a relationship guy. He wants to. He don't give a dadgum what he'll make the logo on the side of the helmet mean something to him. You know what I mean? He don't. He's not enamored by that stuff. And so, Malcolm Kelly over at TCU did a great job. I think he still felt at home at Texas. He felt kind of a better connection at Texas, and then he up and fired everybody. So he came to me and said, "Coach, I ain't going there because of the what's on the side of the helmet. I was going because this, that, and other." I said, "Dude, you need to be at peace with this decision. You need to be. I don't care where you play football. I can care less where any of them do. I just want to be happy and healthy." And so I had that conversation with folks, and he decided to go to TCU. But no, there was zero concern. And I'm not saying the transfer pool is bad. I'm just saying he ain't going to do the I could go increase my stock somewhere else. He's going to increase his stock because of him, and he knows that, and that's what he believes in. And so Jared was a little different story. At Texas, they weren't using the tight end like he felt like they told him they were going to use it. So he wanted to go somewhere and just play the game. And he wanted to be more of a tool, and that's what they're doing with him there. So different journey, but almost the same kid.
He's caught more passes this year with TCU than he caught combined in 3 years at Texas. So that says something. Of course, he didn't play all the time at UT. Because he's a quarterback, does that help him in any way when it comes to learning what he had to do with TCU?
Well, I'll tell you this. He had to know because he played tight end for us. That's when we had TJ Rumfield. As a junior, he was our tight end. And so he played and practiced tight. Now, I'm going to tell you, you want to talk about wearing a kid out mentally. I mean, and that's a tribute to him because he could handle it. But as a senior, he did individual every day with quarterback because he was our quarterback, but then he would play tight end as well. I knew what he was going to be at the next level, and I didn't want him to take a year off from that. So he would practice some tight end. He would get in those blocking drills and stuff like that. So, I mean, he pulled double duty as a senior and as a junior because as a junior, he was our tight end, but he also was our backup quarterback. And he was probably good enough to be our starting quarterback. It's just he could play any position on the field. The other one couldn't.
Hey, Scott, enjoy the AFCA. I know it's a heck of a deal. Tonight, TCU and obviously Georgia. Craig, one more for Coach Stewart. And then we move on to another guest talking about the championship game.
Yeah, Coach, just what are the butterflies like on your end ahead of tonight?
Well, I woke up this morning. I was like, gosh dang, it almost feels like game day. Because, I mean, there's an emotional connection. I mean, I spent 4 years. Again, I go to all the middle school stuff too. So I mean, I've spent 6 years with these kids, and it's not like, oh, look there. I mean, I promise you, I was a better coach when they were here. But so it ain't about me. But I don't know how coaches can coach kids all the way through their high school and then see them out the door and not worry about them anymore. And I'm sure there's not a whole lot like that. But I mean, hell, I get called. My favorite times, I get calls from 33-year-old men. Telling me either they're having a baby or they changed jobs. So it's not just about the guys that are on the national championship stage, but I'm invested in these kids, man. I tell them I love them all the time, and I mean every last word of it.
Thank you, Scott. We appreciate you so much. Congratulations. Live the moment. Ought to be fun. Georgia.
Hey, just a shout out for Texas. They tell me there's North Carolina barbecue is the best in the world. Not so much. It ain't bad, but it ain't Texas. So all you people listening on this radio show, don't kill yourself. Come out here and get the barbecue because you can stay right at home and get it just as good or better.
That's awesome. Yeah, good for you. Fight for the state, man. That's
all right, baby.
Thank you. That's Scott Stewart. Scott Stewart, head coach at Temple, on two guys, and Quentin Johnston, who